Okay, guys. So yesterday we wrapped up with part two of Unit 2. So, just a quick recap. Part one of Unit 2, we discussed political philosophies as well as where the ideas of left and right came from. And we looked specifically at people like Karl Marx for the left, Friedrich Nietzsche for the right, and the ideas of Adam Smith that formed the basis of sort of like the middle road that America is more or less set up on. Part two, we looked at characteristics of a free market economy, why a free market economy is good, what kind of things that we do to keep the free market. And we looked at some specific examples of people who succeeded in the free market. This is part three, where we're going to sort of look at labor. Now, this is going to tie in um, the background that we had on political extremism, as well as the background on the market and entrepreneurship. So, labor in America. Labor is the single biggest expense and cost of any business organization. And labor in America has had a very long and somewhat up and down history. Where we're going to start is looking at a court case. In 1842, the Massachusetts Supreme Court decided a case known as Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Hunt. And just to be overly simplified and to really sort of break it down, the government of Massachusetts had sued an, a group of workers who had formed a union. And their contention is that unions, by their nature, were illegal, that there was no right of workers to assemble and organize themselves for the purpose of collective bargaining or collective negotiation. The Supreme Court ruled, and this is Massachusetts Supreme Court, but it sort of set the standard for the rest of the country. The Massachusetts Supreme Court ruled that unions were legal and okay if, number one, they were organized legally. That meant that they drew up a charter, their goals were very explicitly stated, they had a membership role, their members all signed agreements or organizations to be in there and voluntarily agreed to be in it. And number two, they did things legally to meet their stated goals. No assassinations, no extortion, no kidnapping, no blowing stuff up, no riots, nothing like that. So let's address this first. What exactly is a union? A union is a group of workers who join together to negotiate as a group. They do so to achieve things that they want, to try to get something that they want. Okay, so that's what a union is. Now, there is a fairly big backlash against this. And part of this is, and this is where over the next couple of days we're really going to develop this, there is a lot of tension, a lot of struggle between labor and management. Now, remember, for Karl Marx, all of history is a struggle between groups of people. It goes to the idea of critical theory, that all history is made up of struggle versus oppressor and victim. For Marx, the victims were the laborers, the proletariat, the worker. The oppressors were management, the bourgeois, the business owners. This connection, sort of with Marx's idea of the proletariat and the bourgeois, is really at the heart of America's problem with workers. Americans see unions as being anarchist groups, as being Marxists. Now, let me digress slightly here. Because one of you is like, but wait, Mr. G, you said that anarchy is a tool of the right and Marxists are of the left. I don't get it. Okay, that's a great observation. But remember, when we're looking at political extremism in theory, we go and look at the horseshoe theory, the idea that the further apart the left and the right get, they actually begin to curve and come closer back towards each other. The right are individual anarchists. They are people who believe there should be no government and that the individual is government to him or herself. On the flip side, you have leftist social anarchists. They don't want organized government. What they want is groups of people who basically run themselves. So, what Americans begin to believe is that unions, these groups of workers, that these unions are all part of a vast conspiracy to overthrow the government. Why would that be? Well, number one, the owners feed that fear. The owners fear the workers. They are afraid that as workers organize, they are going to rise up and they are going to cause riots, whatever else it may be. They sort of feed into this fear that most Americans have. The owners point and say, these groups, these unions, they're only about causing trouble. They're going to riot. They're going to try to overthrow the government. Now, it seems like a big jump here how we would get to this, but let me try to backtrack slightly. So let me just sort of throw this, for lack of a better term, this parameter out there. A conspiracy is a belief that there's an organized effort to go against somebody, but it's a secret organized effort. So, why do conspiracy theories develop, or why do they exist? Number one, sometimes there are real conspiracies. In fact, we'll have a book in class of just like legitimate conspiracies that turned out to be all true. Number two, people do not like it when there are pieces of information missing. And we attempt to fill those gaps to explain why, so it goes A, B, D, E. Well, how do we get from B to D? Well, missing C, we find something that makes sense as to why B goes to D. In this particular case, it ties into the creepy pyramid people, the Illuminati. So let me try to explain this real quick. So, what is the Illuminati? In 1775, in an area of Germany called Bavaria, a former excommunicated Catholic priest, excommunicated means he was thrown out of the church, named Adam Weishaupt, formed a club. And this club was made up of very rich, very intelligent, and very greedy and kind of smarmy, creepy, sketchy aristocrats. They claimed to be in possession of secret knowledge, that they were the ones who were illuminated. And in Latin, they called themselves the Illuminati, the enlightened ones, those who are given the light of truth. And they set up a series of ideas or contracts where they would all work together to wipe out all religion and all governments and create sort of a giant utopia where they were in charge of everybody. Their ideas helped feed in some of the wackiness that became the French Revolution. There's actually a lot of historical documents that will support the fact that these people and their specific ideas were the fuel behind the Committee of Public Safety and the execution of a lot of the aristocrats. The Illuminati became so big of a problem in southern Germany that in the early 1800s, the government of Bavaria actually hunted them down, had them all arrested and executed if it could be proven who they were. Now, we know from records that we had from the club itself of their membership and who took part that some of their members escaped and they just disappeared. These members went to England, some of them went to America, some of them went to Canada, some of them went other places. And these people, especially the ones in England, were the ones who bankrolled Karl Marx and helped him publish and write out the Communist Manifesto and his ideas, which became communism, which reflect a lot of the ideas that the Illuminati organization itself wanted. Hold on, we got the buzz going off. I'm going to pause this. Okay, sorry about that. The alarm went off. In Europe, these ideas really caught on because there was such a contrast between the poor working class and the developing wealthier middle class slash rich who owned the businesses. Marxism really caught on, and the Marxists and the anarchists, the social anarchists, the Marxist anarchists, organized a lot of the unions in Europe. Most of the big European unions were all Marxists. When immigrants began coming to America, they brought these ideas with them. There's a whole crop of immigrants we're going to talk about tomorrow who are political immigrants. They're not here to make their lives better, they're escaping prison or execution. American business owners, upset with the legalization of unions and the growing strength of workers in America, began publishing the idea and supporting the idea that all American workers had been like influenced by these European Marxists, that these immigrants were the cause of America's new problem. And what did they all want? They wanted to overthrow the government. Now, remember, this is the time of the 1850s with the Know Nothings and their hatred of like non-Americans. It fits into this time period that you guys looked at last year. So it's not a big jump to go from unions are opposing us and we don't like that to the reason that they're opposing us is that they're actually all Marxists and they want to overthrow the government. And these businesses really fed into that idea. And this fear that the workers were all Marxist Illuminati members trying to overthrow the government, really allowed the owners to avoid addressing some very real problems that needed to be fixed working wise, which we'll talk about tomorrow. Okay, if you have any questions, hit me up on this. Otherwise, that's it for today, kiddos. Peace and love.